This fantastic gathering. Okay. So yes. Hi, hello everyone. I am Guillem Riutort. I am dealing with peace, security, and defense partnerships and covering mediation support in the European External Action Service. And I am delighted to be here again, because it's like last year, I've been given 2 slots. Yesterday was for the cocktail and drinks, and now I'm given the more challenging slot of trying to close and to wrap up. And because my colleagues know that I am not able to do so on my own, I am accompanied by the best and brightest minds of my generation that are accompanying me, which are the representative of the steering group that is driving this community of practice. Welcome all to this closing session. I'm so glad to see so many of you sitting here. I know that many are also online, 3 times those in the room online. And it's a great pleasure to share this moment, because after 2 days, it was not clear at all 3 days ago how this gathering would unfold. And despite all the challenges, we showed that we are very much into buzzwording here in the EU, so we showed resilience and flexibility and ability to adapt. So here we are. Most of the people that were expected to attend, many following online, and I'm most grateful to all of you. This is the biggest, the most diverse, and the most inclusive community of practice ever. This 5th edition had 50 panels, more than 600 participants, and this is unprecedented. And I want to thank you all for this, for attaining these figures. We like to frame these things this way. But it's not only inclusive because it's, that we've gone beyond Europe and we have got more participants. It's also because this is not an tick-in-the-box exercise in which the EU tries to gather some civil society organizations and we go ahead. This is a true joint endeavor. We have done this together with this group of fantastic people. Oh, I see that now I have more echo. Good vibe. Before anything, I want to say that we have done this within the EU bubble, and you will allow me to have a message in this regard, with indispensable help, support, and coordination with the foreign policy instrument. And I'm most grateful to Jesper and to the fantastic Barbara sitting there. She's been outstanding. And without further delay, because I'm already speaking too much and I will speak more, I want to introduce you to this fantastic panel that is accompanying me. We have Ambassador Janet Alas, who's the Executive Director of CMI, Martin Ahtisaari Foundation. We have Stine Lemon-Larsen, Deputy Executive Director of the European Institute for Peace. We also have Jonathan Cohen, Executive Director of Conciliation Resources. Jesper Pedersen, just mentioned by my side, Head of Unit at the European Commission Foreign Policy Instrument. We have Sonia, that you know very well. She's been mastering and accompanying us throughout these 2 days. She's the Executive Director of EPLO. And we have 2 friends connecting online. Yes, we are seeing you on the screens. Hello. We have Katia Papagianni, Director for Policy and Mediation Support at the Center of Humanitarian Dialogue. And we also have Véronique Dudoué, Senior Advisor on Conflict Transformation Research Department at Berhoff Foundation. Hello on the other side of the screen. Hope you can see us. It seems like, yes, you react like human beings on the other side. So, I am now asking you, we are already late, of course, but any proper meeting that deserves to be attended goes late. now I will be asking this fantastic group of panelists to do an impossible exercise, which is try to come up with your wrap-up remarks of this community of practice, if possible in 3 minutes' time. We will not be controlling the clocks. And trying to address essentially three elements, three main guiding questions that will help me hopefully to try to wrap up this meeting, which will be impossible because it's been so rich and so full of exchanges that I wouldn't manage. But I would like you to focus on the positive side of things, so on what is working in the field of peace mediation. I would like to focus you on what the EU could do more, if anything, and how to foster partnership in this endeavor. Because as you have noticed, this is one of the leitmotif of our engagement in the mediation realm. Without further ado, Jane, I would like to pass you the floor for your very speed dating 3-minute remarks.
Thank you so much. Apparently, the fact that I missed the drinks yesterday, I get the penalty of starting the panels. But first of all, I would like to thank for the mediation support team and also our peers in this panel. I think this has been really, really useful and great joint effort. So that is, thank you, everybody. My second point is, sorry, I have to look back. This is a dark week. It's not only what happens in Gaza, but the passing of President Ahtisaari that was mentioned already in the opening kind of discussions. That's why I am a bit late here. I think President Ahtisaari might have been the most influential single person that has influenced the professionalization of this field, especially in the European context. So it's a real something, that's a real miss, and that's, I have to say a few words about that, because that's what I have spent a few days back home reflecting his legacy, what it really means in these very dark times. And I think the most important point that we came up was really that we need to have the ability to listen, to treat everyone equally, and always see opportunities, even if the situation is very dark. I think that was the first kind of lesson we draw. The second was the teamwork. You can't do things alone. You have to do things together. And I think that's something leitmotif of this community of practice. The third point, that's, I guess, one of my favorites. He said, you have to be, as a mediator, you have to be stubborn as a mule when you go forward. And I think there is something in that you have to really be persistent when you are pursuing things. But that's just brief reflection that I felt and I wanted to share with you as we have discussed with the colleagues. Quickly on some of the questions that have been mentioned, and I try to be really quick here. We see that the EU continues to strengthen its commitment as a global peace actor. And I think this meeting is a testimony to that. Also, we see that there are more EU special representatives appointed, and I think that really reflects that, and I think that's a great development. It needs to be noted here in these discussions. I would kind of reflect three aspects of partnerships. I'm thinking the CMI has been organizing 3 panels in this event, and I think they all reflect the importance of partnerships in this work. First of all, Sudan, returning to peace and democracy. It is really partnership with the civil society, with the women groups, with the kind of inclusive mediation. That's a very important partnership that we need to have. But second, maybe less mentioned, less obvious. We did the panel on China's mediation diplomacy. We do have new actors in the mediation field. And we need to have a partnership with these new actors. And that's something very urgent, and I think that needs to be noted also. Thirdly, we had the panel on Sahel Maghreb, And I think that showed the significance of regional partnerships, that what we usually do, it is always in a regional context. And I think it is, through these panels, I think it shows what it means, what we mean by the partnerships. I would also like to highlight the event that we co-organized on a peer learning on gender integration. It is exactly because I am not a gender expert and I am not a woman, I want to make this point, because this issue is not technical. It is highly political, and I think it's very important we keep that in mind as a kind of reflection that we all need to be mindful of that discussion and those developments. This would be my kind of quick jotted points for the first discussion, and then what would be the what EU can do more. This is the time that so many feel kind of down, and at least I feel that this has been a really difficult week. So coming together like this, and thanks to EU, is one element we can do, because we can. I do get energy from this meeting. I wanted to come here because of that, and I think that is something that we need. And you know, harking back again to President Ahtisaari, the point, and I think was made in the opening, peace is a question of will. And I think this is something that we need to come together occasionally to keep things going. We also look at. I took up 3 points that would actually be relevant for this coming together and developing the EU. That EU and its member states here. And when I say EU, I always mean EU and its member states. And need actively to work with international peace mediation community. So EU should be the kind of initiator. It should reach out to the actors, not wait that the kind of actors reach out to it. Also recognizing the diversity. The EU should be more looking forward to innovative and collaborative partnerships and solutions. That's clearly something that needs to be done. And EU would need to be open for mistakes and trial and error. Mediation is a work of trial and error. And this is not kind of something that you get right for the first time, but you have to try. And I think that's something it needs to be emphasized, that we need to have a kind of allowance for that. And my final point, I think it's upon all of us. We are now starting to look for the next commission. And we need to, this community here needs to make sure that the peace and peacemaking is a centerpiece of the work of the new commission, not an afterthought. And I think that's something that I would say maybe the most important political kind of aspects or thoughts or point that rises from this meeting. And also for kind of us civil society actors, we need to start to make that point to politicians who are, and all, of course, civil servants, but especially politicians who are working on the next commission program. Thank you. It was a bit dispersed, but these are the main points we gathered. Thank you. Stine.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yes, thank you so much, Kim, and thank you for inviting us up to this stage here and the end of the meeting. I want to just echo Janne's thanks for an amazing event. I think there's been a lot of work put into this from all sides. Several actors in the EU has been involved, and the steering committee, and I'm really glad to see how we managed to pull through. With a view on time, I just want to dive straight into the first point, which is what the EU does well in terms of peacemaking. But I think first, before we answer this, I think it's important to remember that the EU is a peace project in and of itself, and this is something that we need to keep an eye on at all times. This is a bit aligned with Janne's last point. But throughout the EU policy frameworks, its intention, the EU's intention to play a supportive role in peace mediation and facilitation is made very clear, and is also reflected in the priorities and the external assistance portfolio. So we need to continue to remind ourselves of this. In more concrete terms, an obvious case in point is the type of support that the EU provided to the Colombian government in its efforts to negotiate with the FARC. As we just heard in the last session here, the EU concentrated its support through one envoy, and it was channeled through one funding mechanism. And that particular intra-European coordinated approach has been highly praised since, and is actually a best practice, I would say, for how to strengthen national-led and owned peace efforts. And the key takeaway that I draw from that is that, and that could be applicable, I would say, to several other contexts, is that when the EU is able to deploy its various actors and instruments in an integrated and coordinated manner, it will automatically have a strong position. At the same time, and we sit a little bit at the sideline, so I have to acknowledge that bringing the entire house together and playing multiple instruments at the same time, it's frankly not an easy task, but we appreciate when it happens. But to add to this, a related challenge that this community often face and where the EU continues to be critical is in terms of coordination of external actors. The range of actors who all want to have a say and a role in these processes that we work in are ever growing. And this challenge becomes no smaller by the emerging multipolarity and increased competition of the international sphere. Herding these cats is not a job for everyone. Very few has legitimacy to do it, but the EU does, and therefore it's a role that fits rather nicely. But if I could ask the EU to do more, what would that be? Well, I have a bit of a wish list, so I'm going to keep it short. European actors have been heavily present in the Sahel historically through to present time, but perhaps more as independent states than as a united EU. And as we discussed yesterday in the Sahel session, there could be more dialogue-oriented ways to approach this highly strategic region, allowing the EU to support a regional sort of stability efforts in the longer term. There are both historical, demographic and geographic, and I'm not going to say migration here, reasons why the EU has an important consolidating role to play in the Sahel. And in this region, as in others for that matter, I think we could make better use of the EU's unique ability to play multiple different roles, I would say, in different conflict settings, but also to play multiple complementary roles in the same conflict settings. So there is a lot of variety to work on, and there's a lot of different roles that can be played, lots of instruments to be used. That being said, if the EU is to fulfill its ambition as a global peace actor, there is a need to move more towards a culture of risk-taking rather than aversion. And as we've seen in the past 2 days, there are plenty of partner organizations that are willing to work with the EU to jointly taking these risks. See if I can find my notes here. I think I have one more last point, if that's okay. I would say the most important thing here, and this again aligns a bit with what Janne said, if the EU is meant to play an effective political role on behalf of member states, it needs a higher margin of maneuver. The EU can do so much more if there's strong internal consensus, both on its role but also position in particular context. For the EU to be able to prioritize this dialogue approach that we are all asking for, Sahel and elsewhere, member states have to accept that there will be a trade-off between policy areas, and they must accept limits on their individual autonomy to act. The member states need to jointly prioritize this, both politically and financially, for it to work. I think that's it for me.
Thank you. Left, yes. Thank you. The extreme left gets to talk now. Obviously echo the thanks that we've heard already. I'd like to add thanks to everyone who's been in the different panels that I've been in, because I'm now going to try and represent back my interpretation of what I've heard and what's struck me as being particularly important. And I'm going to talk a tiny bit about the EU explicitly. Then I want to talk a bit about partnership, about politics and system. And I'm going to try and weave my answers to your questions all into one. I'm not going to answer them in order. So the question that strikes me is, which EU are we talking about when we want to talk about what the EU can, what works and what the EU can do more of? And I think a question that arose in a number of conversations was around the consistency and coherence of engagement in relation to the EU's approach to mediation. How do these sorts of discussions percolate up through the system to bring about change in what the EU understands it can do? And obviously, a lot of it percolates up through you, so good luck, because you're going to hear an awful lot today, and I hope you can make use of it. But I think there's a challenge that I was hearing about how the EU system prioritizes peace building and mediation. And the challenge is that the EU can do an awful lot, and creatively and with passion and with resources. But all too often, peace building and mediation aren't the EU's priority in the way it engages in a particular context. All too often, trade and security trump peace and mediation. And what we heard quite convincingly today is that if you don't prioritize peace, you marginalize peace. If you don't prioritize peace, you don't commit to the transformation of a conflict because you're trying to get too many other things out and appease too many other interests. And that's a real political challenge, I think. Partnership. I mean, I think that we've heard great things about partnership, and I think it's a relationship with so many parts of the EU over many years has felt like a really strong partnership in an effort to transform conflicts. And I think the layers of partnership are really important. The layers of partnership between the multiple peer organizations here and one another, the layers of partnership between us and the EU, and I think critically the receptivity to partnership with the people who are trying to transform their own conflict situations. And they have to be very much at the heart of what we're talking about today. However, partnership takes time, it takes money, it takes relationships, and it takes trust. And there's been real progress, but there remain real financial and emotional vulnerabilities in our community of practice. I think the ecosystem of our community of practice is at risk at the moment, and I don't know that that's really being taken on board. And I speak from the perspective of running a peace-building organization. The changes in the way that funding is available put organizations at risk at the moment. Now, of course, we're one component of a bigger puzzle. Any one organization, those of us who work in them and run them, hope we continue to be able to do what I consider to be the amazing work that I see these organizations doing. If one or other of us isn't here, that's unfortunate for us, but actually the system loses out. And I think we need to think about how to address those vulnerabilities in order that our community can survive and continue to be transformative. And one of the big challenges, and we say this persistently in every forum we can, is that peace building is a long-term endeavor. Funding peace-building organizations is an 18-month, 36-month, if you're lucky, projectized endeavor. And there's a fundamental mismatch there. If we want to talk serious peace-building, we need to talk 10-year strategies. And where does that happen? Politics. Well, we can't talk peace if we don't talk politics. We need to recognize the value of political processes, even in the most complex and brutal situations. And I think it's very clear to me that long-term solutions are political, they're not technical, and they're definitely not military. And experience from many contexts demonstrates to us that if peace processes don't have credible spaces to explore political outcomes, they risk a self-fulfilling prophecy that forces the means by which conflicts are resolved. And I think it's really important that we don't lose sight of the imperative to engage politically. And to do this, I think we have to enrich the multi-layered approach to peace the connective tissue between formal and informal endeavours. And I think the EU is becoming much more nuanced and much more supportive in doing that. And that's something I value enormously. I thought there was a great comment by Bania Fako about the need to think about political courage in peace initiatives. I also felt, in response to a couple of comments I've heard, that politics is also about emotion. And sometimes we don't engage with the emotion and the positionality of the spectrum of actors. We think that youth or women are emotional. Well, men are bloody emotional as well. And elders are very emotional as well. And we need to encapsulate the entirety of that in thinking about how we confront peace processes. Final point, the nature of the system we're dealing with. And I'll break this into two. One is about the need to systemically engage with community-level mediation opportunities, because oftentimes that's where we see real progress. The protracted political conflicts we observe can be terribly difficult to change, but the incremental, transformative dimensions of community-level peace building can inspire us to keep going. They won't necessarily transform the overall architecture of a conflict, but they create openings and opportunities that need to be invested in. And mechanisms from the EU that can continue to support that, I think, have been fundamental in recent years, and long may that continue. And then a final observation. We had a great conversation with representatives of several women mediators networks. There were 2 men involved in the conversation out of some 30 participants. And it's kind of a little bit boring to reach the point where men don't show up for such conversations and where the women mediators are applauded but marginalized. And I think if we want to really shift this, the EU can play a really important role, because the EU can think about how it can benefit from the capacities, the knowledge, the expertise of these networks, not just how it can put some money in to support them. Great, put the funds in to support them, but actually think about what they can offer and take advantage of what they offer, and take advantage of what the women who are so often doing the frontline mediation work in their communities can teach us. And one of the things that I observed in our conversation today around the sorts of lessons that women mediators can teach us all is that they have been exemplary in creating safe spaces to share the challenges of mediation, to share the opportunities of problem solving, and to support one another to think about how you can do mediation differently. And so I think we've got to think about how we can take advantage of that and bring that to our collective engagement in mediation, not just ghettoize it as part of the women mediation endeavor. So my final point is to build on Jana's observation that peace is a matter of will. Absolutely agree. Peace is also a matter of solidarity. And I think the solidarity of our community, the community of practice here, at a time when we're all feeling bloody down because of what's happening in the world, is really important. So thanks for hosting us, thanks for coming, and it's been inspiring to be here.
Thank you very much, Jonathan, and thank you everyone for a different interpretation of what 3 minutes means. I promise not to respect the rule either. But I will now pass on the floor to Katja from HD. I hope that technology assists us.
Hi, everyone. Yes, can you hear me, Guillem? Perfect. Very nice to see you. It has been really a very interesting 2 days. I have managed to attend quite a few sessions. Thank you for bringing us all together, as my fellow panelists already said. I would like to echo very much Jan's point about the passing of President Ahtisaari, indeed a big figure in the field. A lot has been learned and a lot has been based on his skills and approaches. So Janne will be looking forward to see how you commemorate his contribution to the field. Just to start by saying that what struck me very much in this conference, Guillem, is the extent of expertise and substance that was represented in all of the sessions. A very high quality discussions throughout. And despite the fact that this is taking place in the context of really challenging times, even before October 7th, the times for mediation were challenging. Despite that, the atmosphere was one of optimism, creativity, and essentially of a field that is thriving and a field that is constantly seeking for solutions, and the European Union being at the center of the spirit. So well done in making possible such a discussion in the context in which we're all working. In terms of what works, I thought I would respond to this question in terms of what works in the mediation field at large, of which, of course, the European Union is a big participant, contributor, important actor. Three things have stood out for me. First, several sessions pointed out to the possibility of shared vision being generated among regional and international powers to address really difficult problems. So I think we shouldn't forget that. We speak a lot about geopolitical tensions, about the difficulty of bringing together a shared vision, about possibly the decline of the international community, but there were many sessions that exemplified the possibility of collaboration among regional and international powers to generate a shared vision. And once that shared vision is in place, we have heard about quite a few examples where mediation actually has been extremely impactful. It has managed to reduce violence. It has managed to support parties to design violence reduction mechanisms. It has managed to support parties to design transitional political arrangements. So for me, that was an extremely optimistic message. And of course, the examples of Libya and Yemen stand out in this case. We should always remember that it is possible to build these joint visions and to reach this impactful outcomes through mediation and dialogue. The second issue that sprang out to me is the possibility of really supporting through the tool of mediation local communities to reach agreements on how to manage issues that actually really lead to escalated conflict at the local level, and how to resolve resource sharing disputes linked very often to climate change. This is there's a big future for the field in this area. And the fact that we have heard quite a few examples of the tool of mediation being relevant and impactful in helping resolve these conflicts is actually very inspiring. And the third issue that stood out to me was the fact that it is possible to generate creative peace processes, peace process designs that include youth and women. My fellow panelists spoke a lot about that. And the debate has moved beyond should they be included or not. This is not a useful way of approaching, and the debate is actually now whether productive process designs, which is exactly what we should be. So congratulations on bringing the topic on the table through that angle. In terms of what can be done better or more, or what can we be thinking differently about the role of the European Union, I would say first, and I think that's something the European Union is doing already, first is a posture of the European Union as a supporter for dialogue as a tool for the settlement of conflicts. We are in an international context where we cannot take for granted the support for dialogue and third-party mediation in the resolution of violent conflicts. And having the European Union as a strong voice in favor of this tool, it will continue to be very important. As my fellow panelists said, this is actually something that would require courage, especially in a polarized international system. The second idea that I wanted to bring on the table is for the European Union to be creative, and I think it has already been mentioned, to be creative on in its understanding of who are the actors to collaborate with, to work with when it comes to mediation and conflict resolution. And in the panels that I have participated in, we heard ideas about peaceful mass protest movements as potential actors to think about actively and engage with actively. We heard about social media platforms. We heard about climate change funds as actors and partners in our joint effort to bring about the peaceful resolution of conflict. And the last idea I wanted to bring on the table, which I think also was mentioned probably by Janne, is for the European Union and all of us to be humble and to be open to the approaches that other mediation actors outside of Europe bring to the field. It doesn't mean adopting these approaches. It doesn't mean endorsing them unconditionally, but it does mean being critical of ourselves and at the very least understanding what these approaches are and asking ourselves very honestly whether maybe they are impactful and whether there is a way that we can also learn from them. And I thought that the discussions around China and other actors were very productive. So I will leave it at that. I thank you very much, Guillaume, and your team. The collaboration with all of you has been fantastic. And I look forward to next year, and I hope that I can be there in person.
Thank you very much, Katja. We look forward to having you in the next year family reunion here. I, without further delay, pass on the floor to Jesper Pedersen.
Thank you. Thanks, Guillaume. I'll try to be very brief, and I have the benefit of being able to echo what is on my extreme left and not having heard on my extreme right what they want to say yet, so I don't have to position myself to that. But what we're doing here is that we're closing a very successful event, despite the circumstances and despite the challenges that the team faced in getting things off the ground. I think we were finally able to meet in person, and that has been proven that that is still the best way to meet. Having said that, I think it's also impressive the large number of people that have joined us online. I have a number of 400. You said 500, so we'll stick to yours. It sounds better. This, despite all of these last-minute challenges that we faced. As it's been proven today, and as we've heard from all of the previous speakers, it's extremely important to gather as a community, to reflect, and to exchange on what it is that we can agree on complaining about, and what it is that we can agree on are the future challenges. And of course, this is more important than ever, given the circumstances that we are in with the many challenges that we are facing this week and previous weeks. So it's important to keep our drive, our enthusiasm on contributing for peace and change still intact and be fully motivated. We've heard a lot of feedback during these past couple of days. We've heard about the need for inclusion, for partnerships, for coordination, for agility, flexibility, and about us as the European Union, reflecting on how we are perceived, and of course the importance of also having some degree of humility in that context. I've also listened very well here in terms of taking risks, trial and error, creativity. I think those are all aspects that resonate very well with us where we sit in the European Commission, and with a great degree of interest in trying to accept to fail also once in a while, which is something that I hope none of our finance and contracts people are around here today, but that we most certainly should integrate further. We have also been told by several of you that we should talk more about the processes and the examples where our role and our support have been critical and very successful. I think this is, one of the previous speakers mentioned the the coming of a new college. I think both the previous college, the present college, and I'm sure also the future college will be focusing on how we communicate, how we show the EU citizens in particular that we have an impact. And this is something that we are continuously challenged with, and something these types of meetings also generate a lot of knowledge that we can hopefully benefit from also in terms of communication. What I've also been very happy to hear is that the focus that we have in the Service for Foreign Policy Instruments on inclusion, on insider mediation, on partnerships, have all been confirmed as very relevant, and we will continue working on that path. One thing that I think is particularly important in terms of the community of practice is, of course, that you all know what you're talking about, but you're sharing experiences, and that we're bringing this together, and that we need to continue. I think this COP has proven its relevance. With the fact that we are even bigger, have covered more subjects, have seen the Guillaume, hold up your thing there, your brochure, your new peace and mediation guidelines, that we've been able to discuss those, I think are all important elements that we can take forward and learn from and bring back next year. I would like to thank all of the session organizers, including the ones who came up with the innovative concept on the online booths. I think that was proved very successful. And we can also look at how we can promote those next year, since I was told that they were exceptionally good. Following also the thanks expressed by Guillaume and previous speakers also in the opening yesterday morning, I think we should pay a particular thanks to the colleagues that organized this, both from my team, I'm thinking of Barbara, and from your team, in particular Victoria, and of course from the Hermes team, where I would like to pay particular tribute to Stefan, Jose, Miguel, Agung, Anna, Cesar, Pascal, Charlotte, Fernando. I hope I've mentioned everybody here. So thank you all for the efforts of making this a success. Despite the challenges, it's your hard work that made this a success. Thank you. C'est tout?
I think we have Veronique online. Can you hear us? Are you ready to step in?
Yes, hi everyone. Thank you so much. I'm going to try and keep this short because so much has been said, and it's been a long day, and I imagine those in Brussels will want to go and take their planes or their trains back home as well. I would like to say that it's been a privilege to be sitting on the steering committee for this inspiring COP meeting. I would have liked to be in Brussels. I think it's easier to feel the pulse of the meetings when one is in the room for the breaks and the lunch and the dinners and so forth. For the few sessions that I managed to attend, I want to share 3 brief remarks on what I found inspirational in terms of my own personal selection, maybe. And as we've heard, indeed, it's been a dark week, but I'm happy that we can focus on the positive in ending this amazing conference. So my first point on what works, I'd like to emphasize the value of peer-to-peer learning. I heard many of those who spoke throughout the panels. They come with their own political backgrounds as former activists, negotiators, peacemakers in their own countries. And they are now, many of them, in positions to bring that experience elsewhere in playing mediation support roles. And I think the EU needs to hire more professionals with these kinds of backgrounds, because they make very credible mediation support actors because of that personal experience that they bring. So yeah, that's something that I liked. In terms of what the EU should do more, as advisor on inclusion, I have to go into the inclusion topic. I think we heard a lot about it. We heard words like effective inclusion, pragmatic inclusion, incremental inclusion, normative or rights-based inclusion, Also, inclusion on steroids, as it was called in the current process in Colombia. Also, we heard principled pragmatism. So the idea of not letting the norms get in the way of engaging with hardliners or important stakeholders. Something I heard yesterday is how there is far too much transactional approaches to peace processes currently, so narrow focus on security, elite deals, and this needs to be better balanced with more value-based approaches that offer more chances for transformative peace process outcomes. So how this can be done, I think the EU can do that by using its leverage, using incentives, strengthening the visibility and the partnerships with actors who embody those values, who raise the real issues at the roots of violence. We've heard a lot about women, youth, social movements, religious peace builders. We heard a lot today about victims as well. So working with insider mediators and other societal allies that defend the core values that are aligned with the EU, but also listening to unlike-minded actors who represent real interests and grievances. And someone said yesterday, we have to see the local realities as they are and not as we would like to see them. And so finally, on how to further the EU practitioner partnership, someone said this morning, everyone wants coordination, but no one wants to be coordinated. And I think this is very true. And I keep saying this in every country where I'm involved in supporting peace efforts. I remember during COVID with a colleague, we co-wrote a study on learning from 10 years of EU mediation. And we kept being asked whether the EU is a payer or a player. I think I've heard yesterday and today, the EU is of course still a payer of us and the work that we do. It has stepped up as a player in its own terms, as a mediator, or maybe more frequently as a mediation support actor with others. But I think the EU can also do more with its role as a convener. And I think this COP conference can be replicated at the country level, at the regional level, through the roles of EU delegations, inviting all state actors, civil society actors, avoiding unhelpful replication of work, competition. There was a session on big egos, waste of resources. So we have the Mediation Support Network and other such platforms, but we need more of those. So I think, yeah, we'll need more COPs at many levels in Brussels and in country, and I look forward to attending those as well. Thank you.
Now that I've frozen to death. Okay. Well, first of all, I wanted to point out or sort of raise the amazing engagement of online participants. I haven't really seen that recently. And every panel that I was in where there were folks coming in from online from all over the world, incredible. And just as I was ready to vote our most valuable participant for getting up at 3 a.m., there were more of them. I counted like 5 people who hadn't gone to bed who had gotten up just to be able to participate in this. So I wanted to say that. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to have an inside look at how the EU has organized this COP, to be able to give us the chance to suggest, many different ideas for ELPLO as a network to be able to share the information about the COP to its members, which resulted probably in you having many as you did panel suggestions, and having been able to accommodate them. We're looking forward to the report of the meeting, which I hope comes around the 3 sort of pieces of this, and that we can look at each of us in our partnership about what's working and what we can do differently. Maybe we take inspiration from the Belgian presidency or how people plan weddings, but can we set a date for next year and have a countdown on the web? And in addition to that, I wondered whether you can keep the website up, and maybe not in a public place, but can we capture between this year and next year some more on what is working and what can we do more of, and maybe see what that looks like? Do we have maybe something as practitioners that we want to pay attention to and then report back in a year? How have we done on our partnership? Where have we made strides in our partnership? And maybe we get an opportunity to come back and report. This COP has taken quite a geostrategic focus, I think concurrent with naturally the myriad of horrendous and complicated situations globally. And so there's been a focus on the foreign policy in track 1, and in other sessions, complete practitioner focus. And how can we sort of bring the two together? So how can you take a process in track 3, track 2, and feed it up through the system so it becomes official? Mediation is the most visible and understandable tool, I would say, or argue, in the conflict resolution toolbox. And it's right to keep the focus on it, but let's see when we should use it, what situations are ripe, who can do it, how can they do it, what can be done and what can be achieved. I think we want to continue to have a focus on an area that is in conflict resolution, but the focus, as other panelists have mentioned, on dialogue, on the whole of society, on what you do before a negotiating table, what you do after, and how do we sustain the agreements. In terms of the very, very first point that you made, Jan, about listening, this was one was interesting and somewhat uncomfortable over the past couple of days, but honest. I heard some really honest conversations about what the current perception is of the EU. And I would encourage us, even though when we don't like to hear something, we need to listen harder. It is in our interest. It's collectively. And the perception of the EU at the moment is something that we should be listening out for. It will impact the way in which the EU can itself move forward as a global peace actor, but also to support others. There's a lot that's working, sustained engagement. We have to go between this needing to produce results, needing to show what's working and fabulous all the time, and the need to stay the course over the long term and to support over the long term. You know, Eamon Gilman just said that in the previous panel. It wasn't when he came in as High Representative that the EU was engaged. It was the 30 years that were before. So that's also a reminder, and maybe we can be quite bold and stubborn as mules to continue with sustained engagement. In terms of what can the EU do more, we should really be asking the question about what happens when it ends. We should be planning for when it ends. We should be planning to try to make it end. We should be looking at better engagement with the people who are impacted by conflict. In terms of the partnership, I echo Jonathan's running a network of 50 organizations. Your partners are struggling. They are struggling. How can to be able to continue? I think it's a serious look at how with the youth support and financially has not dwindled in this area, but a lot of the member state support has. The type of support, the way in which it's being given and the partnership is really being impacted. We need to look at what the next 5 to 10 years could be. We've moved so far away from core funding, and it impacts this area in particular. In terms of moving forward, in addition to having a date for when we all get to gather again, I couldn't agree more about how do we make peace, and we can talk about the definition of it, but important and relevant and on the table for the next commission. And one of the ideas I thought might be, I mean, the EU as a peace project narrative will be replaced if we don't hold on to it. It isn't a given. It's not just going to go the way that it is. If you've been listening the past couple of days, it's being questioned. What does that mean? I think we've got to get the message out. We need to make our idea of peace popular again. We need to have a peace campaign in terms of communications. This is where we can all work together. We can start by publicizing this event. We can publicize the report, but we could also be strategic and sit down as colleagues and as friends and plot out what this might look like in the next 9 to 12 months and start to become much more visible about what this peace project and where the peace commitments of the EU are. And then there have been some comments around strategic communication, around disinformation, different panels on this. But there's one other sort of additional idea that I think could be interesting for the EU to look at as mediation actors, their teams, those who are supporting them, and then conflict prevention generally, are often accused of being with one side or the other. It's the classic, right? If you want to change your mediator, then you accuse them of being biased and their team. But you're seeing this happen much more online. And then these people's particular stigma online sticks. It's like a digital tattoo. And it's actually a really interesting area that nobody wants to talk about it, but it does impact people and professional reputations as they move forward. It might be a very interesting thing to look at about how that you might have a little bit of a lifeline support for digital reputation management of people that are engaged in this field. And what does that look like? Maybe prevention, but also a bit of a lifeline afterwards. Stuff sticks with people and it's staying on the web, and it's I've seen it in a number of different organizations and individuals. So I wanted to throw that out there. And then as we sit in this very comfortable freezing room in a lovely location in a very difficult setting, we have a moral obligation to do better. That's why we're here. That's what this is about. It's about saying we won the lottery by just the mere nature of where we happen to have been born. We need to do better. So I hope that we can take the 3 questions and learning from what's transpired, along with perhaps a commitment to better partnership, to work better. We have really all of it if we work more effectively together, so that it doesn't become a payer versus a player, or values versus interests, or a fighter versus a mediator, or a fighter and a mediator, but where we're pushing together on support for dialogue and mediation as a first option, and we're going to ask about how we're going to end the conflict and what's going to happen down the road and plan for it. So it's been a real privilege and a pleasure to be with all of you, and I learned so much. So thanks to everybody for bringing your contributions.
Thank you very much, Sonia, everyone. Okay, so now it's about wrapping up. I had prepared something. Colleagues have helped me prepare something. But I have scribbled so much that I don't know if I can read, so I will kindly ask you to bear with me, because there might be silence of reflection. I will try to touch upon many of the things that have been said. I will not do that on everything, because if not, we will leave here too late. But I will start by saying that this is being broadcast, so we are communicating already, and you are being viewed as we speak. I think it's, I said at the beginning that it's becoming a ritual, no? And I think this is and I take all the appreciation by all colleagues is something that I really appreciate, because we have invested a lot, and there's a bit of a family reunion, no? Like a ritual, like things that happen again and again. There are a bit of a, I mean, I like very much Jonathan's reference to, you know, this emotional part of it and this human angle, and I think this is something that resonates in all of us. It's coming again and again and again, and I think that this also extends to the online domain. But the more we can gather, the better, and we will keep on doing such. So I would say that the first thing is that the community of practice has consolidated. It's now a regular event that needs to take place. Just I can take Veronique's. I mean, many COPs could come. I don't know if the mental health of the team could allow for many COPs, but I see the point on the peace building community to gather, and this convening power that has been called for the EU. I think it's something that we have to keep on building, because we have added value there, and our concept builds on this idea. We are not only payers. We are happy to be payers whenever it's needed, and we assume our role when necessary, but also to be players, and also to be facilitators, and also to leverage. I will try to work around 4 ideas: inclusion, partnership, coordination, and integration of tools. And I think this reflects a bit what everyone was saying. Whatever the qualification, you say effective pragmatism, pragmatic inclusion. For me, there are a number of angles. One is about bringing everybody to the table, around the table, and to follow up and to make sure that it's not only about a piece of paper or a piece of agreement. I think one of the main remarks that is a common denominator here is that the importance of bringing women to the discussions, and it's not a. I think Anthony Giddens was very painful for us, and it became like just an add-on at the end of every social study. You would put the gender approach, and this is, I mean, this is 20th century. We are in the 21st century, and we are into something that is clearly beyond. What we are trying to do here is not only bringing women to the table of discussion, because we know that it's the pragmatic thing to do, because we know that peace is more sustainable when they're there, and there are figures about it. But we are also doing this in the conflict analysis that we have to carry out in order to have a common understanding of what is the way to address the peace process. And we are doing this in our terms of reference when we seek expertise. We are doing it in every dimension of our work. And I think that this is an angle of inclusion we need to keep on developing. This shared vision is what comes up when everybody that needs to be there is at the table. Not much has been said about youth, but I would say that the same would apply to them, if I may, as a personal note. Partnerships. I think this is very much the leitmotif. No actor can do it alone, and this I think it's the verso of the family gathering. I mean, the fact that we are all here talking to each other is because we need each other. I like very much this idea of the EU as a collaborative actor filling the gap. Our concept is based on this spirit, and this partnership has to also include, as it has been said, like-minded actors, and we are engaging with other actors that are coming up, and we have to take them on board. It doesn't make sense just to have a professional discussion about mediation, about ourselves, saying how good we are, and then agreements being brokered by everybody else. It doesn't make sense. So we need to be part of this conversation. I think that the European Union can bring the professional side of things to a much more top-down political approaches, but these approaches are also necessary and are also part of the peacemaking today. So we can just not ignore them. On the regional angle, we are also going this way with international organizations. Our partnerships, of course, do involve the peace-building community, but we also talk to international organizations. Only this year, we gathered together with the UN. I was lucky enough to co-chair a meeting of all the regional organizations, the mediation departments, because these are structures that also, because of this need to exchange and put ourselves in equal footing, it's necessary that we also meet among international organizations, because many of the pathologies and many of the virtues we are highlighting today are the same for everyone. All the layers, Jonathan, you were saying, and it's also about this cooperative, and this will lead me to the next logics of coordination. We need to connect the dots, because when a track one collapses, you need the system to keep on the efforts in order to maintain a peace process alive. When there's local conflict, you need the national level to keep on existing and national dialogue to exist. So we need to make sure that when something fails, the other layers are connected and can help. And then that leads me to coordination. I like very much this idea that nobody can. No, I mean, everybody likes coordination. Nobody likes to be coordinated. We are in I openly say it. This is a competitive environment between donors and between peace-building organizations. But precisely these gatherings help overcome this. Precisely efforts like coordination of track 2. I'm very happy that it comes. I mean, my first days in office, we were working with Martin on saying how we can coordinate track 2 without saying that we coordinate. And we say leveraging, which is beautiful. But in the end, it's the same. It's the same. It's all about sitting together and being conscious that one organization, one actor, one mediator cannot solve it alone, and there is an actual interest, a pragmatic interest in sharing, and I'm being open, and this is the spirit we aim at bringing to this. I was happy to hear that the EU is perceived as a legitimate actor to try to do that, and we will keep on doing that wherever we are called to fill this gap. integration of tools. This has also been said from many angles, but for me, one important thing, and it has also been said by Veronique, I think, and others, and also during these days, in the end, we should not forget, this, regardless of professionalization of mediation, that this is about politics. And the EU has to also understand, and I hope that the partners of the EU understand as well, that the EU has interests. We are not a neutral actor. We do have interest. It's not bad in itself. What we need to make clear to everyone is that peace is our interest. It is in our very interest to have a peaceful and stable neighborhood. It is in our very interest to maintain a functioning and effective multilateral rules-based order. Therefore, we need to, I mean, it's idealism and realism converge. It's as simple as that. And for this, what we do is to put all the tools together. I like the Colombia example, and I think that despite the fact that this is possibly the most complex political machine ever, European Union actors are trying their best to speak with one voice, to have a one way of acting. And this is something that you can perceive in many peace processes more and more through our EU delegations, in our engagement with Commission, and so on. We have a wider toolbox, and we have to use it in the interest of peace. It's about prioritizing peace. And I like the idea, if you don't prioritize it, you are deprioritizing. And it's true, and also in the logics of long term. And this is where we're trying to put together all the different instruments. I have a certain inception pocket that helps me put the spur. Jesper helps us in bringing it to a wider scope and making sense. And then in the long term, we have other funding coming in. And in all this, we have an overarching umbrella about political endorsement. While we do this at all levels with you, I think that this is the approach we have to bring forward, and this is what we are trying to do, including through the COP. Many have reduced the funding for peace projects. We have not. This is factual, and I think that, and also I can say that I mean, even if it's non-linear, I mean, it's difficult for an official to, for a clerk like me to say, but we can afford failure, and it's non-linear, and it's circular sometimes, and it's tiring sometimes. But as Enrique Mora was saying yesterday, it's worth every effort for once that you succeed. We try to explain this to our political masters, and I think it's an uphill battle, but we are getting there, and we are more and more factoring in the peace narrative in our work. Again, this mediation doesn't happen in a vacuum, and we have to react to the political landscape, and this is how we try to do by putting, and again, it's about prioritizing the peace mediation as a tool of choice. Conflict resolution needs to be peaceful as a first layer. And again, even though it's been said value-based, no, and value-based, I don't like when we say EU values. No, it's not EU values. It's universal values defended by the EU. And this is where I think that we bring, again, sorry about the cacophony, added value. I will not speak much longer. It's already been a lot. 3 minutes. It's 3 minutes-ish. But before finishing, I just want to say very clearly that Martin, Victoria, Candida, Janna, Katia have been absolutely extraordinary throughout this whole effort. They are in every single file we handle, and I wouldn't be able not even to speak if it weren't for them. And I want to acknowledge the amazing work of the mediation support team. I will close with also a common denominator about, and it's, we started with this. Enrique Mora started with acknowledging the fundamental role of Martin Atissarit for peace mediation, and also highlighted that it's a matter of will. I can assure you that you shares this will, and that we will keep on working on it together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. We now have come to the end of the community of practice. You have shown amazing resilience, not least by sitting through this very long closing panel. It was very long, but I think we heard some amazing and important summaries and inputs that summarize well the conclusions and the variety of these discussions we had today. We hope it was a positive experience for you, that all your needs were met. And we want to end this with really extending a heartfelt thanks to all of you, because this was a collaborative effort. You know, all the panels were created by you. All the discussions we had, all these findings that were presented today, they didn't come out of nowhere. They came from you. You know, so a big, big thanks to all of you. And this is the most important point. We built this together. Nevertheless, I have to single out a few people that made a very important contribution, and we start with the steering group. Some of the principals, and they were also part of the steering group, are here on the panel, but others are not, and I would like to mention them, because you know, you can imagine such an event took months to prepare. And we had Véronique Dudouet from Beckhoff Foundation, who was on the steering group. Olivia K-Max, where is she? Was there for Conciliation Resources. Jibeke Jönsson from CMI, Ingrid Magnusson from EIP, and Sonja Reines-Givanidis from APLO. You were also sitting on the steering group, and HD Center was represented by various colleagues, mostly Govinda Clayton. Your efforts and your contribution have really shaped this community of practice. Then, this would not have been possible without the technical side. We all ate, we are sitting in this beautiful venue, we have the IT working. You can imagine if you use a hybrid approach with an online component, it's not so easy. So big thanks to the European Resources for Mediation support that really took care of a big part of this technical aspects, together with the support of Miguel Varela and Agung Puntrano, who really supported this. And then last, I have to mention three very special colleagues, and they were partly already mentioned today. But this whole COP would never have taken place without three people. The first one is indeed Miguel Varela. You don't see him here, but he has supported each and every one of you. Behind the scenes. Oh, there he is. He's an extremely skilled process design expert. We've been working with you many, many times before, Miguel. And without your process design and technical knowledge, we could not have never set up this amazing event. Big thanks to you. The second person is Barbara Einhauser. There she sits. Barbara. You are the mediation focal point in FPI. Jesper is extremely lucky to have you. You are the helm of ERMIS in this function also. And you have been working for months relentlessly behind the scenes to set this whole thing up. So really, really big thanks. Without you, this would not have been possible. We're very fortunate to collaborate with the European Commission and with Barbara Einhauser. And thirdly, Victoria Florender. You all know her. She is the mastermind. Behind all of this. She forms part of the mediation support team in charge of the MENA region, the Balkan region, and until recently also the Asia region. And it's maybe not a coincidence that these regions have figured very prominently here at the COP. I wonder why. So many with you have been in touch with Victoria, and she has been extremely helpful. Thank you so much. Thanks to all of the mediation team, to our senior ES hierarchy from the Commission and the ES that have been here. But again, mostly thanks to all of you. With this, just to say, we're extremely excited about the next COP to come up. It will happen for sure in autumn next year. It's an excellent suggestion, Sonja, to put the date and the countdown on the website. We'll soon think about a concrete date. And until then, we really wish you the courage and the determination to keep working for peace in these difficult times. And also the curiosity to keep asking questions and to challenge us, the EU, challenge these standard approaches that we have maybe discussed here, maybe even challenge our guidelines that we are so proud to have presented. We will also at times challenge you. We will keep, most of all, continue to support you, work with you. And together we hope we really will build a meaningful partnership to adapt our approach to this new geopolitical environment and the new unfortunate reality of conflict we are facing. Please do not hesitate to reach out to us if you have any questions. We are at your disposal. With this, I declare the 5th European Community of Practice on Peace Mediation closed. See you for the 6th one next year. Thank you.